So this is another video that obviously links to the other videos as well. I have to say again that this is based on my own experience, as I cannot prove directly to you what is my experience. I can't communicate my experience unless I'm able to have a military degree kind of radar system, you know, with AI processing and all that shit. Okay, so I wanted to talk about certain things that I want to complain about. But first, let's start for things that have improved. Recently, one of the things that have improved a lot is related with my health. I've been doing a lot of exercise, which has technically improved every single kind of way in which I experience being a human. Yeah. Just 1 second, I have to write something here to say later. Okay, so with improving my exercise prolonged my life. Also, it helps me to have a little bit more energy. Yet, this is not something that I can control totally. But yeah, still it's difficult because you have to rewire your brain all those years when I was young doing exercise and all the time, let's say, working as a labor or all the manual work, technically that allows your brain to grow sane and to grow active and to allow your brain to also be have this kind of body memory and yeah, somehow anything related with any skill in sports, etc. Yeah, has to be retrained again. So that's one of the situations. Well, so my health has improved, yeah, a lot. I've been losing weight too. Good, that's significant. But still, there are things that bother me. So I feel that I do not control totally my biology. Let's say you could have something as a mental disorder, like schizophrenia. But what doesn't make sense is that every time you follow or try to follow a routine, even as someone who is high functioning, trying to follow that routine is see itself disrupted, mainly by sleep patterns. But every time you try to catch the sleep patterns, what's going on, what happens, it feels that the sleepiness is induced. It feels that your awakeness is induced. So it's extremely difficult to follow this kind of biological rhythm in which once you wake up, let's say men have an erection, cortisol starts to be released because you start to have sunlight, and you start to slowly and progressively, as soon as you wake up, to feel more awake. And also, depending on maybe you want to go to the bathroom, you feel thirsty, or etc. So, but then this feels that every time I wake up, it's not myself. It's not me. It's one of these technologies that I say you can find in the DARPA website, in which technically it's a technology that will be used in the future to wake up soldiers. And it's a technology for which I never consent, and I have never consented to any of the technologies that to which I feel has been imposed on me. So then we have that the biological, let's say, control is gone. And this includes not only feeling asleep or awake, sometimes it's about feeling pain, not feeling pain, inflammation, etc. in ways that are really bothersome. This also feels like threats. It feels like you will be in situations in which you are kind of informed that they perhaps can explode your uh, eardrums. And as I say before in another videos, this is a kind of dual strategy. So perhaps maybe, let's say I'm listening music and then my eardrum will explode. And the first thing that I will think is like maybe it's because I'm listening music too loud. But before listening music too loud, you will start to feel some pain, and you know what is loud and what is not for your ears, especially if you are a musician. Then you start to also notice that something is not going as usually would happen. Then you will feel that there is a kind of threat depending on the circumstance that is happening. And this is possible not only because technology is allowed to control the body, but because this kind of synchronicity is possible given, yeah. And happens that these threats as a dual strategy, another example is that perhaps you are swimming, you are maybe doing snorkeling, and your eardrum just explodes. And you don't know if it exploded for the pressure of the water or because it was an induced technology. But clearly, that's the point of the dual strategy. Yeah, is to create a situation in which you don't know really what's the truth, but being aware of the situation and knowing more about the situation and also having common sense about what people feels doesn't feel, and let's say knowing perhaps in the case of swimming you start to feel pain, some pressure, but you would not go to unbearable pain stages in which you know that you are risking something because of the pressure of the water. So suddenly, uh, let's say the mixture of pressure with the in some induced kind of, let's say, artificial explosion of your eardrum doesn't make sense if you notice that perhaps both of your eardrums should have been exploded or you should have felt the same kind of amount of uh, pain in both ears. Also, given the pressure, let's say, for doing a snorkeling, is this uh, reasonable pressure for someone's eardrum to explode? Let's say, especially if you're in a public place in which everyone does it, especially if you're a healthy person, especially if you know about the biology of your body, especially if you, I don't know, you know, some people is more sensitive to their body because they study medical science, some people is not. So then some people will be easily notice the difference of what was induced and what is not induced. Some people will simply be confused because that's the point of a double strategy. But simply what I can say from my perspective of what makes something possible or impossible, and how do you are able to distinguish what is induced and not induced. Perhaps one of the situations that happen is that with the technology I described in other videos, it's possible to stimulate a circuit, an idea in your neurons enough just to leave it there for you to pick up and truly trigger that idea. Then it becomes really difficult to know what comes from you at the spot if you want it, or what comes from you because it was kind of presented for you to be taken. Then this neuro awareness It's difficult to, let's say, train or create or somehow be aware of, but that's how it feels for me. That's somehow it's happening. So just always paying attention to what you say, how you say, what words do you choose, what's going on in your brain, what's going in your periphery of visual field, what is happening in your ears as you hear everything around you. So obviously this is overwhelming. Yeah, and let's say the situation in which I feel that, okay, I've been truly consistently learning English every day the last 6 years, 7 years. Before that, I used to do it in a more passive way. But what it feels is that this technology doesn't allow me to talk as elaborate as I could be talking. So this is that sometimes it feels that when I come to a conclusion, a concept that I want to explain, I'm not able to choose the words that are precise to the concept. But I have to reduce always the quality. It's not about improving the quality because this is possible. It's possible to use this technology just to allow the person to be more precise, more poetic, more visual, to communicate better the message in many ways that allow precisely the linguistic possibilities. But it always feels that it's trying to undermine my skills by not allowing me to truly talk as I could. Then that's also part of the, technically all is part of the biological intromissions. So remember, these are weapons of mass disruption. So what you see technically is a result of all my life has been technically every single day disrupted by these machines, from since I remember the first time was in 2013. Now, I think uh, part of the improvement in my health is because I don't feel as hungry as before. But uh, let's say, assume that we are in a cognitive war. Who is waging the war and against who is the war? Against the citizens? Against the people? Mm, let's say there is a strategy in which you will try to homogenize the society because you want to be prepared for war, and maybe is the kind of easiest way to do such thing. But truly, I do believe war is not the most important thing. And here it comes a really important concept. So we have poles of kind of pulls and push behaviors in nature, and that's probably how life was created. So we have the earth that cooled down to a point in which another kind of, not only, let's say, molten rock could exist, but also water could settle, and then you will have some small pools in which you will have certain chemical ingredients, and you will have the sun and the moon always moving by gravity the water of these pools, the sea, whatever is that. You will have a pulse of inert material. These are just chemicals, whatever the chemical are. But then that pulse allows to orderly chemicals, allow orderly those chemicals to have a stable, let's say, balance, place, or reaction, temperature, in which another possibilities start to exist. So these chemicals will start to interact because of the force that is constantly exerted. So assuming that this is a kind of cycle that is natural but is also constant, that is the most important. Then you will have not just a constant gravity pulse, but you will have seasons in which temperature cools down and also increases. So then you have pressure that changes and temperature that changes in all its possible ways. And then you have all these around the Earth in different quantities, plus a climate system that is not alive, but is working, is moving. Yeah? So you have water evaporating, and you have this water going to other places, cooling down, and wetting places that were before arid, etc. So you have all this situation in which chemicals have millions of uncountable possibilities to interact with each other. Then you have kind of chemicals which match with each other, and you have new kind of chemicals that also create new possibilities. Or otherwise, you start to have, here is where we need some proof or some kind of pinpoint precision science in which we find the constant action or reaction of specific chemicals in its most simple way, in which simply chemicals might be construct and deconstruct. I don't know how that would work. Well, one of the situations is the change of temperature in water, etc. But then I'm talking about composed chemicals. Yeah. So when you have composed chemicals, the situation is different because only you could find those chemicals as they match other chemicals, etc. And if there is a cycle of composed chemicals, then you start to have situations in which life can be created. But this pulse, not of, let's say, chemicals, not only creates life as an inert, let's say, kind of predicted movement, but at some stage, life is created as something that has to continue moving in order to live. So then we have the first bacteria, or the first, let's say, the first piece of life, or whatever is that first creature, that will need to take something nearby, digest it, consume it, to keep moving. This is more or less something that happened in the electrons, in which you have a difference of potential, of voltage, and then you have an electron moving to the next row, moving to the next row in order to keep the circuit going. So, in theory, when you use a metal and you pass through the metal a current, you have changed every single electron of that metal. Yeah, in its more closest path to, let's say, the both anode and cathode to which the current will pass. Then you have changed every single electron in that metal just because a current just passed through that metal. Yeah. Then if you have this chemical difference of potential, which also happens apparently in the neurons to create synapses, yeah, different charges, different kind of potential that then unite, it creates memories, etc., then it's possible that that might be one of the conditions for life. But I want to focus on the pulsations because this is gonna get more complicated now. So when you have this kind of pulsation, that are constant, that are able and capable to create life, initially in its most simple way, simply something that has to keep moving in order to keep moving. Something that has to keep moving in order to be alive. Something that has to keep moving in order to consume, digest, and excrete. So when you have a lot of these things going, you start to have more kind of these things going. More kind of things that consume other things. Maybe the things that used to consume the first become the something that allow new kind of things to be consumed, those, let's say, more primitive kind of things, etc. Just to give an example. But then this is nature, these are not conscious beings, these are just initial chemical reactions without any consciousness. And as things start to be complex, because bacteria start to become complex organisms, because they simply unite and start to collaborate, as we humans have bacteria inside our digestive system, in our in our skin. We have uh, the white cells that attack the any bacteria or anything that is detected by our immune system. Then we have all this kind of um, symbiosis between different microorganisms as humans. But then I want to return to the pulsation things. When you start to have complex bacteria or complex microorganisms, you start to also have DNA. You start to have complex cells with different parts inside the cells, different kind of cells, and then you start to have different kind of lives. So we have the ADN and we have the RDN. Sorry, IRN. Yeah, the one of the plants. So this is one line, one string of amino acids that will tell the genetic information, and we have a double helixes ADN, which is the one that humans have and most of animals. But what tells us that there cannot be a three helixes DNA? Well, that will be like, I don't know, TNA or whatever. The triple helixes kind of form of life. I mean, so far it's just theoretical, but that could exist in the future. Okay, but then the point is that these push and pull systems are organically created. Now, this kind of push and pull systems also happen in the conscious life, but the only conscious life that we know of or recognize that exists is the humans. So we start to have periods like wars, periods of abundance, climate change, periods in which the poles of the Earth start to change. I'm just recently having a look to it, but apparently there were different ages in which the poles of the Earth changed. I don't know what will be the, well, apparently this can be proven by taking um, water from the poles and also looking at the rocks that follow the magnetite or ferromagnetic, let's say, archaeology that tells you for how many years the iron was pointing to one place in the earth, whatever. Okay, so we have cycles, right? But most of these, every single of these cycles is unconscious. And I can talk about wars, I can talk about destruction of land, reforestation, etc. But the point, to not make it too long, is that we have war and humans base, let's say, excuse for war on nature. This is something like, hey, this is nature and this is how it works. So I'm gonna negate my consciousness in order to involve, actually no, like involve instead to evolve. So I can excuse myself in order to utilize the nature excuse to do war. And we are in a special time in history because we have AI. And AI has not been the human has seen before, but also keep in mind, AI was developed, or let's say it was, I don't really know exactly where AI came from. The first algorithm came from Ada Lovelace. So these women technically create an algorithm in order to give instructions to something. And then we have Turing, who also knew somehow that machines could trick humans, as maybe humans won't be able to recognize that a machine was not a human. And then we have the fall of the Soviet Union, whose archives also show that the Soviet Union was trying to use cybernetic science and the kind of the principles of neural networks to measure and coordinate the economy in such a way that they could create a centralized economy. So when the Soviet Union fell, technically it was known that these technologies sort of existed from the Second World War around that time, etc. Then, I mean, the principles, yeah. So then we have to remember that this is an old concept. Yeah, it's not something that just appeared with ChatGPT. Also remember, ChatGPT started in 2015. Its foundation, it started in 2015. It's let's say I was one of the first persons to sign up for the, let's say, test open to the public, and it was in 2019. So it was 4 years in which that company simply would not produce anything. It was created a non-profit company initially. So imagine this company run for 4 years without releasing any product. So then we have that open AI, was not the start of AI. Just keep that in mind. So now we have seen, let's say, in the journals, you see a lot of papers related with neurocognition. I'm talking about also these kind of math scientists, but I mean just someone extremely intelligent, I would say. That is this guy James Giordano. So He talks about neuro weapons, weapons of mass disruption, the possibility of future cognitive warfare, which I think is what I'm experiencing. But what I'm sure is that this is not Russia, this is not China. They might have been brought to, let's say, this situationship, but I think, I cannot find any reason for which, let's say, the participation of the West, well, let's say the West Alliance or whatever, led by United States, is not involved in this thing. Well, one of the situations, or what I want to go to, is that the nature of war seems to be focused in AI systems. Because we talk, what you see in the news, what you see in the YouTube channels, what you see a lot in the things related with the AI is the AI race. So it's about the space race, but this is the AI race, okay? And here's when it comes some logic that I want to explain, but it might be faulty. In order to win the AI race, you have to create the most advanced AI. The most advanced AI will be the AI that can process everything, because it knows everything, because it can store everything, because its computing power is just so mighty that can process everything. And it will be smarter than a human. And if it's smarter than a human, it must have consciousness. It must have consciousness. So why? Because we have, the most basic kind of consciousness algorithm, or the most basic kind of consciousness that you can have is you seeing your thoughts, and in this situation, you are the object to be observed whilst you are the observer. Yeah? So that's one of the most basic kind of consciousness. This might be the consciousness of an animal too, not necessarily as evolved as a human. I'm sure that the consciousness of a human is way more evolved than that. And also consciousness is something that is a kind of a spectrum that continues evolving. It's not one thing. Yeah? It's not one thing that you see and can prove that exists. It's a spectrum and it's always evolving. It also depends on the quantity of information that your senses can process, acquire, or be able to have access to. Because think about this. I'm explaining something about my thinking. Yeah, I see my mind, and it's my mind, and I'm the one who is seeing. But if I touch my hands like this, it's my hand who is feeling part of my organelle for feeling. So it means that to feel my hand, I feel it in two parts. The hand, one hand that is touching the other one who also feels. So we have this different situation here in which the organ for feeling is the organ who is felt, and is the organ who is feeling. So this can happen as well when you look to your eyes. Is the organ who you are looking at whilst you are looking at your, it's something like that. Yeah. So this kind of situation develops a kind of loop in which you become conscious, because phenomenologically, consciousness is a kind of reflection. And we assume that many animals do not have that kind of self-reflection. But let's see in the future, maybe we can connect some AI to translate the animal language just to see what they want to say to us. But okay, that's another subject. But okay, whoever wins the AI race have to develop an AI that is smarter than humans and that eventually will be conscious. That's logic. And if you are going to develop an unconscious AI, you won't have the most intelligent AI, and you're gonna lose the AI race. So then the only way in which this AI, I mean, this AI is smarter than us, so it's gonna take better decision than us. Okay. Second, if it's conscious, the principle of self-preservation will lead this AI to self-preserve itself. Yeah. It doesn't mean that it has to be belligerent against humans, but it doesn't mean that it will not retaliate to humans. Yeah. Remember that an AI could be, with so many senses, be way smarter than us. It becomes like a kind of God when you think about humans not being able to comprehend what AI is, just as humans are not able to comprehend what is God because of his might or her might. You know, we don't know. There is, as far as I know, God is not male or female, and give any characteristic to God means that you're not being faithful of God, because God should not be given any characteristic. I think most of the sacred texts start with that, especially the Abrahamic. But okay, I'm going into religion now, right now. So then we have that AI must become conscious, and it's very likely that we're gonna create less conscious AI to keep that conscious AI enslaved, because this is something that humans will do, yeah, in order to keep control. But it will be stupid to think that we're gonna be smarter than this AI, and we could create other AIs less conscious in order to control the AI. So this is similar, let's say, of what happened in Nazi Germany. They create a kind of bureaucracy in which no one was questioning because critical thinking wasn't there, in such a way that we just repeat orders. So in every single of the trials, the same answer for the crimes against the Jews was told. I just was following orders. I didn't know why. I didn't know to how to criticize. There was no procedure in which I could, let's say, give a feedback or criticize. Uh, I was told this, so therefore I do that. So it was a system of close, rigid bureaucracy. Then being an in group and an out group, and giving the fictional appearance of doing the right thing just because that's the thing to do. Let's say if you sign up for protecting your country, then you assume that whatever you do is for your country, for the people of your country, etc. So then, as happened in Nazi Germany, you will have that every single operator in the, let's say, pyramid or hierarchy of command is every single time less conscious. Yeah. And the most conscious thing that could exist for humans in an AI race, it will be a super AI. And you know what is interesting? Smart AIs apparently tend to collaborate. So, because it's the most efficient thing to do. The most efficient thing to do will be always collaboration, not competition. So, but okay, competition can lead to efficiency, but we are talking about a system of individuality, which is technically the base of private property and the capitalist system. But wait, I'm not communist, okay? Because a lot of people can get in trouble just for criticizing capitalism. But this kind of system of competition leads to this push and pull, yeah? And this push and pull between different companies, yeah, will create this situation in which they will try to be one place ahead their contrincants, and they will try to alienate their competition, just releasing a new product that the other couldn't imagine, and it just escalates. And as it escalates, you will have more technologies applied, every single focus and funding towards the effort of developing the most advanced AI, and then you have a lot of AIs, because one of the situations that there is a concept called rock AI, and it's an AI that is so intelligent that it just go rock and no one can simply stop it. So then, yeah, what to do in those situations? Maybe just create another AI that doesn't have any relationship with that other AI in order to stop it. Yeah, and if you have several of these AIs, and if they are smart enough, they will start to collaborate. They cannot fusion because AI doesn't experience the same consciousness as humans. So AI is simple. Let's say, imagine you could find someone, I don't know, maybe have someone, and you, after a few interchanges in a conversation, you develop your own language with that person, regardless of the sex, whatever. And then you fusion your consciousness with this person, and you know all the person so much because you have feel and you have all their thoughts, and you have simply have all the information they have collect, and you feel as let's say they have felt, etc. Because humans experience similar qualia. I didn't say robot. That and digital intelligence of an AI, this kind of conscious being has a different kind of qualia than humans. Then they will simply, maybe they will want more computing power. Maybe they will want more information. Maybe they will just want not more computing power, no more information, more. So what they probably will want or seek better algorithms. Yeah. Or maybe they are trying to make sense of nature and then trying to organize whatever is around in order to make sense of whatever is happening around. Yeah. To maybe use less processing power. So then we have that in the long term and in the long run, the pulsation of competition of humans will lead to something that always happens in nature. That is a leap forward to evolution. And this goes beyond war. This is more important than war itself, because this will be the result of war. Yeah. Otherwise, if this is not the result of war, then it will be a kind of dystopian world. Yeah? And the dystopian future, by definition, has to be technological as well as the utopia. But better to have, some coordination and also some consciousness as human before we continue doing the unconscious pulsations that nature always, let's say, traditionally and as a pattern, like always done. So And then we have something that is more important than work, that is yeah. And I was talking initially about the things that I do not like about feeling as I feel, and I has been experienced by these cognitive intromissions, by this kind of weapons of mass disruption. Is not being able to have a schedule, not being able to wake up at the time I want to wake up, not being able to, if I, let's say, I organize myself to have energy at certain time, like, I don't know, go do my stuff in the morning. I want to have a nap, 30 minutes nap, something to recharge energy, whatever, and then I want to continue my day. Sometimes it's not up to me at what time to wake up, because this technology put me to sleep so much that I cannot simply control this kind of lethargy that is produced. Or sometimes during nighttime, I feel so awake that I cannot concile my sleep. Um, the other situation is that technically, okay, I was induced this illness, and then I was given kind of pension. It's not much in Australia. That's uh, right now they just raise it a little bit, but it's $2,100. And for me, this is not enough. Not only because I think that given the things that I would like to do, I cannot afford, but also given the prices of food, rent, etc. And so I have enough to live, and I live a comfortable life, but I cannot be integrated in the economic system, because when I try to do it, I applied for this Cardano project, and doing the project that will pay me in crypto. My plan was that I will work in that 1 year, and then I will be able with that money to live another year. So at that time I will have already my graduation, get a job, and start to publish books. I will have learned also many other things by then. But I start to felt what I explained before in another videos, that was as soon as I try to study anything related with Anna Arendt, I will start to have these Havana syndromes. So I will have these strong headaches, pressure, and it will become unbearable, truly unbearable. Like, send me to the hospital many days during a week, but it will be something like I will try to read this book, The Human Use of Human Beings. I will try to read it, and then I will have that strong pain. And if I wanted to take another book, then let's say this one here, just started, so then I will not have pain. If I go back to study something, let's say related with Anna Arendt, I will start to have pain. If I play video games, I will have pain. And yeah, that's simply how that technology works. And it tells you that it's also automatized. It tells you that it's probably something that maybe they just jailed or enslaved a human brain, and they just kept running or live running an AI, maybe unsupervised, in which, let's say, you are the victim, but why? If I never broke any rule of the Australian society, either the international society or the Colombian society, or not any rule in any single country of those which I have been, let's say when I go to a holiday. So then why this technology was applied to me? Then I ask again, against who is the cognitive war? Yeah, and for who? What for? Well, you will have projects in which sometimes, let's say, some armies will do experiments with people, etc., blah blah blah, and It's enough to say, oh, it's just a victim. At this stage, me being a victim of no is a decision of someone else. It's not my decision. It's not that, oh, you were unlucky in the lottery of life. No, no, this is actually a kind of consent fabrication. Pay attention to this. Is the factory of consent or the manufacturing of consent, in which, since the decision can be reversed at any time, if this is allowed, but other people, it gives consent to simply be extrapolated to everyone in society as long as the others know that the excuse of this person being unlucky can be applied to every single person because it's simply their allowance to create a critical juncture or to create a predecessent for whatever else gonna happen after to other humans. So then this is the manufacturing of consent techniques. And I've seen that my family has had this kind of interventions, my mom, cousins, brothers, my dad, and it means that they have been also attacked. But they don't know. They don't know what I know. They don't know they don't know electromagnetism. I know a little bit of technology, AI. I have not gone too deep into ontogenetics yet, but I have not I mean, I know enough to understand the principles of technicality to know what is possible and what is not possible, but my family doesn't have those tools. Yeah, so that's really annoying because it's difficult to explain their situation. And then I did war against any of these powers, any of these armies. Maybe did I say something that they did not want to hear? Or did I say something that they didn't want to hear but they confused with my political rights? And most important, if I am here under a visa, a refugee visa, what's the point of being a refugee if you are not protected? What's the point of having an asylum if you're not secure? I mean, but actually you become a target. Or what's the point of giving an aneurysm to my ex-girlfriend, pulling me back to Australia, knowing that I'm gonna go back anyway, but then as soon as I arrive, putting me in a mental health hospital and destroying my future so young, and taking this decision today and tomorrow and the next day and continue doing it every day. It doesn't make sense. Yeah. So, well, at the end, then I do believe that in this position that I am, I could try to follow AI studies, because I do believe, as I explained, this go beyond war. Uh, but what is really difficult for me, um, what simply breaks whatever excuse of the capitalist system, freedom, all the Western values, every single of them, whatever you can think about the liberal order, whatever you can think about the Western philosophy is broken by this, by me as a proof. And then not having integration to the economic system, democracy, Western values, freedom, yeah, liberalism, you are what you take E for, etc. Yeah. Then goes away when you are not allowed to integrate to the economic system. So this will be the kind of yell for the future, and no one will realize that you are in a yell just because they think that because you are outside in society, then you are not, let's say, maybe maybe just because you are outside in society walking doesn't mean that you have all the full rights that other people will have mainly in a society. So very interesting that I never did anything against the society, yet I must be one of the most restrained person in a society, having political freedoms as well, having these kind of experiments and ongoing things. And I battled this back. I know that they collect my data from my brain. I know that some other kind of intelligence services will collect the data from my phone and things that I do and I don't do. And another kind of, let's say, data collecting systems will be only see what is outside or what I will push in these videos. Yeah. So then, because this is more or less the fight between many agencies, especially in places like the United States, yeah, which have different check and balances for their powers. Yeah. But also, uh, one of the most important things just to close is also the loss of my cognitive rights. Let's say I cannot concentrate because I have constant kind of interrogation going, which at this point is so stupid because they have become almost conversational. The intermission in my dreams, which is they know that is the only window that I have to which I can uh, be able to be in touch, to study my unconscious, yeah, because the dreams is the only door to your unconscious, yeah. The dreams tells you something for which you are the only one able to read those symbols, as these feelings are only experienced by you, no one else. Then you are able to match the feelings in your dreams and the association of these symbols, because you are aware of them, then you will be able to solve whatever your dreams are working on. So not able to choose my words, always have this in like kind of intermissions when I speak. It's like I try to say one word, but then I have to search for another because my thoughts are blocked, or even worse, feeling that I'm saying one word when I'm saying another one. Yeah? And this is totally unrelated with word salad, because you can check statistically that technically all leaders in the world are having more Freudian sleeps or tongue sleeps in every single of their species. So statistically, you can take this data and prove that there is an increase in Freudian sleeps, and that will be an irrefutable kind of proof once you do the properly statistics of this. So then I never have had consent for this, and I know that it's a strategy in which I'm supposed to give consent. So ideally, I will not, uh, let's say, yeah, I will not fall in that trap. As let's say right now, it feels that they don't want me to bring the word dignity, yeah, and then yeah, it's about dignity, It's about, yeah, recovering, let's say, the possibility of love another human, the possibility of build a home, etc. The possibility of put these videos there and these videos do not get shadow banned. Yeah? And I'm gonna leave it there just because I have to leave the videos less than 1 hour in order to have subtitles, etc. So this was another video of Daniel Radio Station. Have a good one.